welcome back. Sorry I've not done a video in quite a while because I've just not really felt like it. I've also been away, had quite a nice time, but that doesn't matter for now. I might do a whole other video on that, but for now I've got a new video for you, just debunking and pointing out some hypocrisy and lies of the fat acceptance community. Lie number 1. Size is entirely genetic. If this were the case, then obesity rates would rise proportionally to population growth, yet this is not the case. An increased availability of high-calorie foods has dramatically increased the rate of obesity that is disproportionate to population growth. If food had nothing to do with it, then obesity rates would be the same everywhere. However, countries that have access to our high-calorie westernized diet are far more obese than countries that do not. There is also archaeological evidence suggesting that obesity only affected those who had access to high-calorie diets and sedentary lifestyles, including monks and nobility. Fat activists make this claim to try and prove that they couldn't lose weight even if they wanted to, but what this claim actually suggests is that any change in weight is impossible, including weight gain. Yet they often talk of taking up more space and saying that weight gain as an adult is a positive thing. If the idea of a genetic weight set point was true, it would be impossible to gain weight and go beyond the set point. Lie number 2. BMI is a worthless measure since it doesn't take muscle mass into consideration. Whilst it is true that BMI doesn't always accurately represent body composition, this is only true at extremes. Bodybuilders having high BMIs while simultaneously living for the gym is cited as damning evidence against BMI, as if those physiques are entirely possible naturally without weightlifting. The amount of muscle mass they have makes them an outlier, and in healthcare settings, their increased muscle mass is noted alongside BMI for this reason. This aside, the bodybuilder argument is a complete false equivalence. The people who say this garbage are usually fat activists who believe that going to the gym is fat-phobic and who are obese because of fat and not muscle. Being obese because of overeating increases your risk of developing obesity-related diseases, which are the result of excessive fat and not excessive muscle. Outliers do not completely throw out BMI risk categories since they are outliers, and therefore not representative of the general population. We have an obesity epidemic and not a bodybuilding epidemic after all, and you are far more likely to be obese due to overeating than you are from bodybuilding, especially if you're a fat activist. Lie number 3. Fat activism was started by fat black queer women, therefore fat phobia is inherently racist, misogynistic, and homophobic. There is no evidence of these fat black queer women existing at all, and none of them have ever been named. They're instead spoken about as a vague collective group with little to no information ever being given about them. Names, dates, location, and every other important historical detail is conveniently left out. We can apply the burden of proof here. They make the claim that these women existed and therefore have to provide the proof. They've failed to do this, so their claims can be entirely discounted. The evidence that we do have shows that fat activism was started by a straight white man with a fat fetish named Bill Fabry, essentially the exact opposite of their fictional fat black queer women. Point of hypocrisy number 1. It's racist to avoid becoming obese because of the fat black queer women, but the entire continent of Asia is very fatphobic since they don't carry American plus sizes and most people there are thin. First of all, it's pretty racist to imply that all black people are fat, since black people aren't a monolith and there is an immense amount of diversity in black ethnic backgrounds. This should be obvious to anybody who understands how ethnicity or ancestry works, and since fat activists act like genetic experts when it comes to defending their lifestyle, they should be aware of this. This aside, they believe that anybody who wants to remain a healthy weight is giving into anti-black beauty standards, making them complicit in societal racism. However, we can easily use this logic against them. Many Asian countries have very low obesity rates, and the average person's diet would be described as restricted by fat activists, meaning that they class the average Asian person as thin. They don't want to be thin and frequently talk about healthy weight women as if they're disgusting or ugly, and by their own logic, they're being racist by implying that Asian people are gross because they're thin and saying they don't want to look like them. Lie number 4. Food is fuel and not addictive. You should eat whenever you're hungry or you're basically starving yourself. If food was not at all addictive, nobody would use it as a maladaptive coping mechanism or eat themselves to death. Compulsively consuming highly palatable foods that are full of fat, sugar, or salt has been shown to activate dopamine receptors that are involved in addiction. Eating whenever you are hungry is not a good thing either. Animals don't have much innate self-control when it comes to using resources, and in a society with an overabundance of consumables, we have to learn when to say no. If we all give in to every single urge, we would quickly self-destruct and spiral into addictive habits. For example, if you decided to intuitively smoke and have a cigarette every time you wanted one, you'd probably start smoking a pack a day in no time. It would be a horrible idea to go on a daily spending spree or start doing shots first thing in the morning on the daily. But when it comes to food, fat activists will never run out of justifications for their overconsumption, which is textbook addict behaviour. Melodramatic statements about starving oneself by choosing not to overindulge is also typical addict behaviour. You may challenge an alcoholic on their drinking habits, and they may retort with something along the lines of, "Well, you can't expect me to live like a nun." In their mind, the level of consumption is completely normal, and anyone who rightfully disagrees is trying to restrict them. Like how a fat activist may say, "I'm not going to starve myself," when told by their doctors to cut down on the junk food. Lie number 5. Dieting never works, so it's not even worth trying. Whilst unscientific fad diets do not show good results and may lead to rebound weight gain, calorie-controlled diets are proven to work. People who claim that they don't have usually tried this and failed, blaming their bodies instead of themselves. If you secretly eat, don't correctly measure ingredients, don't correctly log your calories, massively overestimate caloric expenditure from activity, or have frequent cheat days, you will not lose weight at the expected rate because you are over-consuming calories. As Dr. Now from My 600 Pound Life says, the scale doesn't lie, people do. Some people also have a very poor understanding of nutrition or basic human biology and do not understand how weight loss actually works, so go about it completely the wrong way. They may try to reduce their portion sizes, but then consume thousands of calories in the form of alcohol or high-calorie soft drinks. Weight loss surgery and semaglutide medications work when complied with due to a restriction in caloric consumption. If calories in versus calories out was complete made-up bollocks, this wouldn't happen. Lie number 6. Weight loss is impossible because of starvation mode. If starvation mode was real, then famines and restrictive EDs would never kill or harm anybody. Plus, the burden of proof theory applies here too. Fat activists make the claim, they have to provide the evidence to back it up. The only peer-reviewed study they seem to offer is the 1944 Minnesota starvation experiment, which actually disproves all of their claims. I made a whole video explaining why, and that's linked in the description, but to put things very simply, the study quite literally states that the metabolic changes that fat activists call starvation mode does not even apply to obese individuals. Lie number 7. Being fat is healthy and obesity-related diseases are actually caused by weight stigma. If this was true, then archaeological data would reflect this, since obese nobles still suffered from obesity-related diseases, even when obesity was a positive status symbol. In modern times, their hypothesis could only be proven in an experiment using a control group of healthy weight people who experience weight stigma. For example, actresses or models who are called fat or are body shamed. To prove the hypothesis, these healthy weight people would have to suffer from obesity-related diseases at a higher rate than obese people who don't feel affected by weight stigma. Yet again, the body positive bunch has the burden of proof here, and unless they can provide any real scientific evidence, their claims can be discounted. Modern scientific research confirms that obesity-related diseases are caused by an obesity-causing diet or excess fat in itself. Point of hypocrisy number 2. You can be healthy at any size, but being thin is inherently unhealthy since you are starving yourself and must be miserable. If any size can be healthy, then why does that apply to everyone except thin women? Also, if they claim that weight is entirely genetic, then why would they believe that thin people are starving themselves since food apparently has nothing to do with weight? If intuitive eating is the right way to live, how can they prove that thin people don't intuitively eat smaller portions? Also, if food consumption is directly responsible for feelings of happiness, how can they then claim it isn't at all addictive? Lie number 8. Plants all grow to different sizes, so it's stupid to assume that all humans are the same shape and size. Well, the thing is, different plants are different sizes and shapes because they're members of different species, meaning that they're so genetically different that they can't reproduce with each other. This would only make sense if there was only one species of plant, when in actuality there are nearly 400,000. Humans are all one species, by the way, just in case that needed clarifying, but as I say, fat activists are all self-professed geneticists, so they should all understand this. Point of hypocrisy number 3. You have a right to stay fat, but weight loss is always unethical. If you have a right to stay fat and bodily autonomy is so important, you should also be able to use your bodily autonomy to lose weight or stay thin, right? Point of hypocrisy number 4. I'm living in a bigger body, but skinny bitches. Hold on, if you're so proud of being fat, then why'd you try to dissociate yourself from your body while simultaneously defining others by their body types? Also, if weight stigma is so dangerous that it can cause actual disease, why participate in it by using words like thin or skinny as insults? That's all for today. I think I've pointed out a few, but there are many, many, many more, so this will probably be a multiple part series. I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Please drop some fat activist lies at the bottom in the comments. And again, thank you for watching. I will probably try to make more semi-regular videos. They may not all be fat activism related, but I know my audience, I know what you all like to see, and I like making these. So, goodbye.